Welcome back, MMA fans, to part 2 of the 2020 MMA Prospects video series. This video will be on the Bantamweight division. It's a video I'm pumped to get into. For those of you that are new to my channel, the rules I've always lived by is no UFC experience for any of these guys, and that includes the Contender and the Ultimate Fighter, no Bellator, no PFL. For organizations like Rizin and ONE FC, very rare to see a fighter from one of those promotions, unless it's a lower end guy or someone that I like to get exposure to outside of the hardcores. Even in a promotion like KSW, if you do see a guy from that organization, it's not going to be a champion. It's going to be someone that's starting to build up some momentum. But also very rare for me to see guys. Most of the guys are from smaller organizations or organizations that are growing. And the point of this video is to get these guys exposure, and also it's super fun for me to do it. As you're watching the videos, if you're new again, for each fighter, if you want to check out some fighter footage, video footage for these guys, check out the comment section below. I'll put links to all their stuff on YouTube and on the internet itself. I'll also put links to their social media accounts. And for myself, if you want to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'll put my links to those accounts in the comment section below as well. Fun facts about today's video. The combined record of the 20 guys we're going to talk about is 230 wins and only 60 losses. So very impressive. And we're going to talk about fighters from 12 different countries. Should be fun. Before we get started, one more rule I've always had on this channel is that if I talk about a fighter, doesn't matter if it's 10 years ago, I never talk about him again. He goes on the channel once and that's his thing. However, for this video, for the first time in 13 plus years, I'm going to break that rule. I'm going to re-talk about a guy I listed 2 years ago just to get him another bump in exposure level, because this guy is ready for the big show. No longer is he a prospect in my mind. But nonetheless, let's get started. The first guy we're going to talk about is Rustam Kerimov. I have him listed at 26 years of age, 5'5", 135 pounds, another Dagestan fighter. Just Russia has produced so many superstars and so many more to come. I have him at 14 wins and no losses, 6 TKOs, 2 submissions. This guy finishes fights. The affiliation, he fights with his DAG fighter, which is a camp that's full of some amazing fighters. Let's take a look at some of his key wins. He's beaten 15-4 Francisco Maciel by KO. 23-5, a very, very tough fighter in Abdul Duarv. That's a war, that fight. 21-5, Oleg Borisov. He's got a victory over a dominating victory over UFC vet Takeya Mizugaki. 19-5, Tyrell Ragimov. 8-3, Beslan Afganov. And 13-4, Alexander Pedersen. So you can see he's a real guy. He's beaten tremendous fighters. Some guys with some great winning records. Again, I'm going to put a whack of links to his videos in the comment section below. A very exciting fighter to watch. What can you say? Very athletic. He's got takedowns and some great slams, as you'll see in some of the video footage. He's got some nasty ground and pound, which he uses effectively to set up submissions. And I've noticed that it looks like he's improved since I featured him a few years back. I think I talked about him in 2017 or 18. In my mind, like I said, he's UFC ready. Very well-rounded fighter and very exciting. And he's in that division, that ACA Bantamweight division. And again, I mentioned in the last video, if you're in the ACA, to have a 14-0 record or be undefeated is tremendous, because that organization is full of killers and has multiple guys that can fight successfully in the UFC or Bellator. So for him to maintain this record and defeat all these tough guys says a lot. However, I think the time is now. He's at that age, you know, that age 26-ish, where he's you know, for the most part hitting his stride and close to his prime, if not there already. And again, very well rounded. You can check this guy out on Instagram. I'll put his link in the section below. And I'm not sure if he's under contract or not with ACA, or if he's if he's a free agent coming up, or what the deal is. But certainly you would say this guy most certainly has already been seen by some of the bigger organizations, and he'd be a great addition to the UFC's already stacked bantamweight division. And there would be some very exciting fights there for him. Imagine him and Peter Yan facing off one day. and it nearly happened when they were both in the same ACA organization. Nonetheless, very excited for Rustam Kerimov. Check him out. The next guy we're going to talk about, let's move back to the States, USA. Johnny Munoz Jr., 26 years old, 5'9", 135 pounds, 10 wins, no losses, 6 submissions, 2 TKO victories. Sequence JJ Nikorko is the organization he trains with. Key wins, well, most of his fights have been against lower level competition or guys newer to the sport. He does have a couple of nice wins. He's beaten Ian Key at 5-4 and 4-2, Renton Oglugla. And he's also beaten a fighter with a 10-11 record, but in Musa Torio, who's a Bellator veteran. And that's a guy that's been in there with Yamaguchi. He's been in there with Ian McCall. So that was a nice victory for him. I put in the video section below 4 or 5 videos for Johnny. One is an interview, so if you want to get some background on him, decent video to check out. Let's talk about Johnny. What can we say about him? If you want to check him out on his homepage, I'll put a link to that in the section below. He has a page that kind of talks about his history. It sounds like Johnny started training jiu-jitsu at a very young age, somewhere as a young boy. And it looks like he's had 7 world titles in various jiu-jitsu tournaments. So obviously, Johnny's base is very strong. You know, some guys come in as kickboxers, wrestlers. It's pretty clear his is jiu-jitsu. However, he does look very comfortable on his feet. And it looks like his hands are getting better. If you watch some of his old fights leading up to his new fights, his hands to me look a lot better. He moves better on his feet. Not so much flat-footed, which is good. And I believe he had a big KO victory to win the King of the Cage bantamweight belt. So he also seems to have a lot of upside. And, you know, again, he's another guy at that age, 26, where he's right at that point where he's really hitting his stride and coming into his prime, I would say. So, you know, a perfect time for him to make the next step. And for me, you know, I think he'd be a great addition to Bellator, but I'd like to see him in the UFC. And I believe he's probably a winner or so away from getting the call. Again, another guy that if these bigger promotions have to know about Johnny, and I'm sure if he's a free agent, whenever that happens, or if the King of the Cage, he's under contract and they're willing to let him go, I'd say with a win, another win at the most, and I'd be surprised to not see him get a call. So check him out. Number 3 on the list, and forgive me for pronouncing this if I pronounce it wrong, but Zviad Lazishvili, 28 years old, 5'8", 135, fighting in Georgia. K's in MMA, 12-0 with 8 submissions. So, I can't find a ton of history of any of his opponents back when he was in his home country. He did have a nice victory over Josh Huber, who was 24-10 at LFA 79, coming off a 4-year layoff. And Huber is a BJJ black belt, so that was a nice. It's a fighter that went the distance with Corey Sandhagen, so that tells you what kind of fighter he is. Zviad started wrestling at a very young age and started training combat sports at 19. He's been in many grappling tournaments, and I believe he was the Combat League champ for the 135 division, a promotion based in Italy. When you look at his videos, you'll see a lot of his footage is from when he was very young, early in his career. And I must say, a lot of these guys, if you see in videos and you're like, well, that guy doesn't look great. But you might be watching this guy as a teenager, some of his early fights in his career, and that's the case with Zviad. So if you look at some of his first videos from, 6-7 years ago, to look at some of his latest, say his last victory at LFA 79, it's a night and day difference. The strides he's made over that number of years is great. And he has fought a lot of guys that were bigger than him when he was back in his home base. And I can tell you, this guy is very serious about his career. And it sounds like that's why he made the move to the States. He really wanted to make that jump to a bigger promotion. Again, I put the link to the Huber fight at LFA 79 in the video in the comment section below, and also a link to an interview. So another good chance to learn about Zviad. What can I say? Good takedowns, good ground control. Looks to have that smothering offense once he gets you down from the top position. And again, strong wrestling skills. So that's That's his strength, speed, and athleticism. Obviously, if there's an area for improvement, it's going to be in his hands and his kicks, his striking, that kind of stuff. So, nonetheless, at 12-0, a couple of victories put this guy in the driver's seat. And again, he's another one of those guys that's just at that age, 28. To me, he's in close to his prime. So let's see him get another win, maybe 2 wins, and hey, let's see him in the show. So hopefully this helps him out. Next on the list, Khusein Askhabov, 24 years old, 5'8", 135, 20 wins and no losses, 4 TKOs, 9 submissions. Luxembourg, great to see a fighter out of Luxembourg. Team Alpha Male, WWFC promotion. Twin brother who was also 20-2. Let's look at some key wins. Edilson Texier, who's 28-15. Donovan Resme, who's 14-5. And Dave Van Hebert, which is 19-8. So, the thing about Khusein is I looked at him in the past. And he turned pro, I think, at around age 16 or 17. Most likely 16. And it's an example of when I first seen his fights, I mean, he looked good, but he didn't blow me away. But again, that's just a young, not even a man yet, still fighting professionally. And I was going to talk about in the past, but, you know, I did pass him up and was looking for that improvement, and I've seen that now. In his last couple of fights, you can see the strides over those 7 or 8 years, where he was at and where he's at now. And he looked super aggressive in his last fight. I'll put the link in the section below. It was a very nice victory over Luis Filo with some slams, a little bit of judo throw action going on, good leg kicks, and then the finish. So, again, turning pro that are young. Really, at the time, you know, you're new to the sport, you're new to all this stuff, but the changes a fighter can make in 2 or 3 years is tremendous. And once you hit your early 20s, if you got 3 or 4 years and you survived that without any damage, you're head and shoulders above the competition. So, again, this guy does have a pretty wide range of skill. 13 finishes in 20 fights, and the competition level has gone up, and it looks like his game has grown. So, a huge portion of his career was at a teenage level. So to me, at 20-0, I don't care who you are in this sport, you deserve a look. And right now, I think today he'd be a cool addition to Bellator. But again, it'd be nice to see a guy from Luxembourg make the UFC. So at this point at 20-0, once you hit that 20-0, the exposure level kind of pops up. So with the winner too, I'd say you look to see this guy as well. And Instagram, he has close to 400,000 followers, which I'll put the link in the section below. So he is growing in popularity big time. And let's hope to see him get some exposure to some of these bigger promotions. So please check him out. Number 5 on the list, Askar Askar, 25 years old, 5'7", 135, Palestine, Jerusalem. So that's where he was from, and of course now he's in the USA, Midwest Training Center, 10 wins, no losses, 5 TKO victories, 1 submission. Let's take a look at some key wins. Dennis Donbone was 10-6. He's beaten 8-5. Eric Mardell and James Blair was 5-2. I believe he also has a couple of brothers who are also in MMA, and I may be wrong here, but I believe both are undefeated in their early careers. So something I'll have to research. Again, some videos in the section below. One of his highlights, one interview video. So check him out. I think he had a pretty successful amateur career as well. He had a few fights in the amateur level, which he's done well at. But obviously with this guy, striking and speed has been the key to success for him. And that's an area, if you look again at his early fights, he's made leaps and bounds since his amateur days. He's also shown some pretty decent takedown events. And he's shown the ability to get back up once he's been taken down, which is also something that good fighters have to learn. Obviously, there's lots of room for improvement, not only in the striking area, but, you know, let's take a look at his grappling game. Where is that at? And again, that's something that when you get into tougher organizations, you need to have that skill. You need to be able to get back up. Submission defense is key, unless you're super high level striking, that, you know, you want to have that ground game. So Very tough fight against 6-2 Rustam Kerimov at HFC 42 coming up for him on February 7th. Very, very tough fight. Nonetheless, I think, again, at 10-0 with this style of fights, and he's very committed, I think, with a win or two again. It's another guy we could see in a bigger promotion. Moving on to number 6, another Russian fighter, Khusein Sheikhaev. 22 years old, 5'6", 135. Fight Club Berkut, which is full of massive fighters, talented fighters. 9 wins, no losses, 2 TKO victories, 5 submissions. Key wins over 16-9, Nurzdan Estanov. 20-4, Kanat Kelebov. 12-5, Diego Silva. 15-8, Ruslan Serikubov. And 12-7, Kirill Megadov. So he's beaten some real guys. No easy fights in his organization. Again, ACA is full of killers, so it's tough to keep winning in that organization. Videos. Check out his, got a great head kick KO in the comment section. Also his fight with Diego Silva. Check that one out. And, you know, for the guys he's fought and still to be undefeated, it's pretty impressive. And, again, another fighter fighting in that tough ACA division. Bantamweight division is full of killers. And, in fact, there'll be a third guy from Russia in the ACA we're going to talk about. This guy's the second. So, number 3 will be coming up later. That speaks volumes of that organization. But he's got a mix of power and submissions. You know, the majority of his fights have come via submission, but he has shown some decent striking. That's probably an area he needs to improve a little bit on. His footwork, you know, some guys got great hands, but they're flat-footed, and then some guys are good on their feet, but their hands aren't great. So I think he's there. He's certainly athletic enough to make that next step, and at just 22, there's still time. You know, nowadays with so much exposure with, you know, even things like Fight Pass and that kind of stuff. I think, you know, it's 7-0 in the bantamweight division. Guy gets a couple of victories in that type of organization, and he'll be getting a call pretty quick. Next on the list, and this is a guy that for hardcore fans, everybody's going to know. Some of the newer fans not. Magomed Magomedov, 28 years old, 5'7", 135, 16 wins, 1 loss. We'll talk about that 1 loss in a second. 4 KO victories, 7 submissions. Another Dagestan fighter and another DAG fighter from the DAG Fighter Fight Club. Let's talk about 2 of his 17 fights. He is the only man to beat Peter Yan. A very close, hard-fought war. He got the split decision victory in the first fight. A little controversial, but nonetheless, he got the win. In the rematch, Peter Yan won, again in decision. Although unanimous, he went the distance. And as we see now, Peter in the UFC, that's not so easy to do. Just ask Uriah Faber. So key wins, obviously, Peter Yan. Walter Pereira was 14-4. Edgar Scrivers, who's 16-4. Dean Garnett, 9-2. Oleg Borisov, 21-5. Bruno Diaz, 19-11. Radek Mostov, 28-18. And Yuri Maya, 15-4. So he's beaten a sea of fighters with great records. I'll put some links to some videos, maybe his fight against Walter Pereira and Dean Garnett. I mean, if you want to see a couple of good wars, check out his fights with Peter Yan. They're on YouTube. I mean, the guy finished his fight, 11 stoppages out of 16 victories. Some say he's, you know, more of a wrestler, ground holding kind of guy, but he has good submissions. He uses that ground and pound to open up the submissions, which is great. He's good at closing the distance, and he's good at setting up that takedown. You know, in the last few years, it seems like this guy was building up some momentum, and the Peter Yan fights, for some reason, kind of took some of that steam away. I mean, hey, he split fights with Peter Yan and went 10 rounds. So, to me, it's surprising no offers came yet. I don't know if he's under contract, but hey, if you want to see another guy thrown into that fire in the UFC, Meg would be a good fit. Even Bellator, he'd win a lot of fights in Bellator, I believe. So, at this point, he's right there. He had a good war with Garnett. That's a video I'll tag. Both guys were dropped in that fight. Very exciting round 1. And then he came away with a pretty nasty victory, guillotine victory. And As a matter of fact, I believe he has 4 guillotine submissions in his career. So it's another fighter we could see for sure. Check him out. Next on the list, from England, very exciting, entertaining fighter, Jack Cartwright. Not only entertaining to look at, but entertaining to watch. 25 years old, 5'9", 135, 7 wins, no losses, 7 finishes, 3 TKO and 4 submissions, fighting out of England, SBG Manchester Team Coliseum. He's got a very tough upcoming fight against 20-fight vet, Magomed Magomedov. I believe he's the Cage Warrior Bantamweight champ. And what can you say? This guy finishes fights. He's got power. Key wins, a knockout win over Marco Kavajic, who's 12-3, and Scott Malone, who's 6-3. You'll see some great KO videos, which I'll put the links down below. But again, very exciting, old school fighter, very entertaining to watch. I mean, if you're a fight fan of any sort, you'd like to see this guy fight. He finishes. He's got striking, both in his hands, throws some kicks, but also has some great submissions. And looks like he's been fighting a while. He's had some looks like a decent amateur career as well. And again, you can see some of his early fights to where his skill was there and where it's at now. He made great leaps and bounds, and he even looked good back in the day too when he was just a young guy. So it's another fighter that, to me, of course, he'd be a great addition to one of those bigger promotions. I mean, he's exciting. He's trying to finish a fight, and he's got power. If he can get through his next tough upcoming fight, for sure, you would think, because Cage Warriors is an exposed promotion. It's not an unknown promotion. I'm not sure that some of their fights may be on Fight Pass as well. So definitely a guy to check out. And I believe this is a guy I can confidently say with a win or two, we'll see him in one of those bigger promotions. Next on the list, going to Brazil. In Brazil, of course, if you watch my videos, there's all kinds of hidden gems. Guys we don't get to see. Some guys fight with great records and they never get the call. They don't get the exposure. The first guy from Brazil we're going to talk about, and there's going to be a few coming up in the final portion of this video, but William Lima, 22 years old. I don't have an exact height on him. I believe he's 5'7", 135 pounds, 10-0, 1 draw. 4 TKO, 4 submissions, so the guy finishes fights, well-versed. Fighting in a Brazil Astra fight team. Key wins, he got a nice KO win over Ricardo Sassam. And he fought a hard-fought tie from 4 years ago with 12-1 Douglas Philippe. Again, check out the videos. There's some great stuff. It looks like he started professionally fighting at 16. And that happens in Brazil a lot. Another unknown fighter in the sea of fighters that have come from Brazil. And it looks like he's got decent skills. There's not a ton of background footage on the guy, but he's shown he's versatile. He's got that nice head kick KO in one of the videos you'll see. He looks like he has speed, and of course he can finish fights via submission. I can't find a whole lot. I believe he does have a social media account on Facebook, maybe Instagram. Again, I'm going to put his stuff in the section below. Check him out. Not a lot of footage, but some of these guys from Brazil, man, they just don't get the exposure, and the money they make up there is not great. So anytime we can help out a guy from Brazil in any way, shape, or form, then it's a big positive. So if you see this guy on social media, hit the like button, share the video, anything you can do to help him out, because another guy that 22 and 10-0, hey, let's see this guy get a shot someday. All right, the next guy we're going to talk about. Another Dagestan fighter who now fights out of England, but it's something new for this channel. We've never talked about a guy in a 13-plus year history about a guy that's only fought amateur, and we're about to change that today. Magomed Magomedov, 19 years old, 5'9", 135, Aspire Combat Sports Academy and All Power Gym. 21-0 as an amateur. The stats for amateur fights as far as finishes go are not totally accurate all the time, but I have him at 5 TKO, 2 submissions. Still a lot of growth, of course, and the amateur fights, a lot of them are 3-minute rounds, not 5-minute rounds. And it looks like he moved from Dagestan to England at 12. Cage Warriors 125 Academy belt, wrestling, BJJ, and MMA accolades in all 3 of those disciplines. Now the big thing with him, two-time world champion, just won his second world title tournament as an amateur, and apparently he wants to go after a third. That's the IMMAF world champion. He's won a European Junior BJJ champ, six-time British wrestling champ, British no-gi champ, and I believe it's the IMMAF European champ. That's a few of his accolades. I'm sure he has many more. But this guy is starting to get a big following, and he has had offers from some of the bigger promotions, not UFC to my knowledge, but I think maybe Bellator offered him a contract, maybe ONE FC, I'm not sure. But again, this guy's got that Dagestan aggression, dedication, the wrestling, everything is there, and it would be interesting to see. Like I said, it's hard to talk about in this sport, an amateur fighter, but with what he's done, winning these world titles, world tournaments, you got to win multiple fights in one day. And to see his background, he's a Dagestan fighter. He's starting to build up momentum. Certainly, this guy's going to be a hot commodity. Ever since Khabib is blowing up, it's really exposed a lot of the Dagestan society of how many good fighters are from that area of the world, and the wrestling backgrounds and the striking background and that kind of stuff. So obviously he's 19 years old. He's got lots of improvement to do, especially in the striking area. But again, he's got great submissions. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's got great wrestling. His grappling, offensively and defensively, is good. So with his name, his background, and his accolades, surely this guy can make a jump whenever he wants professionally to a bigger organization. So it'll be interesting to see when he does turn pro, if he's going to stay to some smaller org or hop right into the fire. So hopefully I like to see the guy take things a little bit slow. Next on the list, again going back to Brazil, and this is a guy I went back and forth whether I was going to include him or not, but at the end of the day I decided to. Let's get him some exposure. Carlos Augusto da Silva, 26 years old, 5'8", 135, 19-2, 6 knockouts, 4 submissions, fighting in Brazil. Marquina do Futuro and Cornelius MMA. After starting his career 2-2, I believe he's won 17 straight. Key victories: he's got a victory over 10-2 Carlos Soares, 11-3 Carlos Eduardo, and 8-1 Ronario Jr. So he's got some real nice wins. I don't have a ton of footage on the guy, but I do have a couple of videos. One of a pretty nice head kick KO at Jungle Fight 89, and then another 25-minute war he had, a back and forth fight. So he's got that kickboxing style, and again, started off 2-2 and won 17 straight. So to me, looking at him, he looks pretty comfortable on his feet, a little stiff, but he's got power. And if there was an area that he would need improvement from what appears to be his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu, but certainly that can be improved, or even just that takedown offense. If you get that takedown offense down pat and you're a great striker, that can be huge for you. So at 19-2, 17 straight wins, surely with a couple more wins and some exposure on social media, this guy's going to get the call. Nowadays, with so many organizations growing and looking for fighters, you get on some kind of a 20-fight win streak, there's a good chance you're getting a phone call. So hopefully we see this guy. Next on the list, and this is super cool, fighting in Chile. Always great to see somebody from a country you don't see a lot of fighters come from. Eduardo Matais Torres. 24 years old, 5'8", 135, again fighting in Chile. Equipo Chaf is the organization, or the fight club I should say. 10-0, 2 KO, 3 submission victories. He's got a very nice win over 8-1, and who was previously undefeated, Rodrigo Vera, and 8-5, Thomas Vasquez Jimenez. Check out some videos of him. Again, he recently is fighting in the Combat America organization, and these guys continue to put on tough, gritty fights. Mexican organization, and this guy fits right in. Young, improving fighter. Got some decent wrestling, and he's got lots of pressure. He puts that pressure on, striking, trying to close the distance, and he shows the ability to finish fights. not just by decision, but both with the striking and the submission victories. He hasn't fought a ton of upper echelon competition, but the last couple of fights have been, you know, decent guys. And again, you know, you think about Combat America, it's growing now. It's similar to ACA in the fact that if you fight in that organization long enough, your undefeated streak is coming to an end. So it'd be nice to see these guys get a couple wins and then get the shot before they stay in these lower orgs too long and then they end up losing the fight and they lose some of that steam they built up. So I'd say with a win or two, hey, why not see him get a shot? Next on the list, again sticking with the Brazil theme, Luis Lazy Boy Rodriguez. A lot of folks probably haven't heard of this guy. He's just 20 years old, 135, 5'6". Adam Cartwright, 10 wins, 1 loss, 4 TKO victories, 3 submission victories. He won a JFL tournament, three victories in one night tournament. And I don't have a whole lot of footage on him, a little bit, so check him out. Appears to be an aggressive stand-up fighter with fast hands and some very nasty leg kicks, powerful leg kicks. And of course, not only that, he can finish fights, as you see with his 3 submission victories. But very aggressive. Looks like, again, those kicks to the leg kicks, very, very nasty. So another example of a fighter in Brazil that probably hasn't got much exposure. And at just 20 years of age, man, to be 10-1 already. Let's see this guy step up. Get a chance to make a few more bucks in a bigger organization, so please check him out. Next on the list, Gerardo Fanny, 25 years old, 5'6", 135, fighting out of the Netherlands. Great to see. 9-1, 3 submissions, 4 TKO victories. Ringer Sportada is the fight club he fights out of. He's got a key win over 11-7 Luis Filo. So again, first of all, great to see another prospect out of the Netherlands. And for anybody who's been around for the K1 days, that kind of stuff, Netherlands is just was always known to be full of tremendous kickboxers. And if you watch this guy fight, he's got that classic style. He looks super comfortable on his feet with the legs and the punches. And then the other nice thing you see about him is he's just not a striker. He's got takedowns and he's got nice ground and pound. And he shows that in some of the fights you'll see. Not only his KO power and his punching and kicking capabilities, but he shows nice submissions. Effective on the ground, uses that ground and pound to open guys up to get that submission opportunity. Of course, if he does get in a bigger organization, the question will be how he handles wrestlers and some of the upper echelon wrestlers, right? That's always the question when you get a guy that looks super comfortable on his feet. But he does look like a good prospect to me, and I'm not sure when his next fight is lined up or if he's under contract. But again, anytime you get an exciting fighter, especially from the Netherlands, you know, we've seen so many great guys come out of that country, El Wapo, the Reem, those kind of guys. So it's always great to see new blood coming from that country. And I put in some great videos of Gerardo, 3 or 4 nice stoppage victories. You'll see. Check him out in the video section below in the comment section. And again, I'll put a link to his Instagram, his Facebook. Another hungry fighter that wants to make some strides. So check him out, Gerardo Fanny. Next on the list, Joash Walkins, 13-1, 1 loss, 5 TKO victories, 2 submissions. 29 years old. So this is the guy who's right at that bubble. So once you hit 30, 31, usually I talk about guys 30 and under. Nonetheless, fighting in Trinidad and Tobago. So great to see a guy from that country. We haven't seen many fighters come out of that area of the world to the bigger promotions. Key wins over Julio Rodriguez, who's 16-6, and Jean-Marc Howell, who's 13-5. Of course, with a 13-1 record, you're going to get some exposure. And it appears he's had an impressive Sambo career as well along the way, competing in many tournaments in many different countries. And also looks like he's had an extensive judo career, where he's won national championships. Looks like he's won a national championship 2000, 2008. He's also won a national boxing and judo championships too. So that gives him quite the mix and quite the background. I think I was able to find 3 videos on him. It's another guy that you can probably check out on social media. Facebook, Instagram. And he's shown some good ground and pound, some good cage work, decent hands, decent wrestling. It'll be interesting to see when he gets in there with some tougher guys or more experienced guys how he will do. But check him out. Moving on to the list. We're getting down the stretch. Paul Capaldo, fighting out of the USA, 22 years old, 5'6", 135, 4-0, 2 TKO victories. Nick Cantone MMA and Fitness is where he practices his craft. The key wins, for the most part, he's fought lower level competition. I have attached some nice videos, pretty nasty head kick KO at CFFC 71. Also, there's a video of him. He went training in Dagestan with some of his training partners here in the States. So he went over to Dagestan with those guys, their home country. And obviously, when you get to go to Dagestan and train with those guys, I mean, the experience you're going to pick up is priceless. There's a good video series on the Dagestan fighter, and there's a couple of episodes, 1 and 2, and I'll put the links in the section below. But he's trained with Zviad. That says enough right there. Said Nurmagomedov, Timo Valiev. I mean, we're talking about some high-end guys. So, obviously, if you watch this guy fight, he's very athletic. And he's very serious about his career. And to get mixed in with those guys, man, he has a chance to make it. And he is getting some more exposure. Social media-wise, it appears to be that popularity is picking up. And he's showing some good skills. He can finish fights and he can go the distance. He's shown he has decent submission skills and definitely wrestling. Wrestling appears to be a strength. He's wrestled before. I know in high school he has. So, and again, that's a great base to have. If I was going to pick one base, it certainly would be wrestling. So, with his athleticism, his record, if he wins some more fights, and his training partners, I believe this is a guy that you'll see in Bellator or the UFC in the not too distant future. Moving on to Australia, Mitch Martin, 28 years old, 135. Don't have an exact height on him. The MMA clinic in Perth, 8 wins, no losses, 3 submissions, 3 TKOs. Key wins over 8-2 Ben Watson and 7-2 Kalen Olfi. I did attach a couple of videos. He's got some nice victories, 3 or 4 videos I'll put in the section below. A southpaw fighter with some nice ground and pound. And at his age, 28, man, get another win or two and then put your name out there and try to get to a bigger promotion. The MMA, the scene in Australia is growing. And the UFC is really trying to put a foothold there. You'd see the recent fight with Whitaker selling out 57,000 fans. It's gotten bigger and it's a good market. So they're always looking for young talent and new fighters from that country. So I'm sure a couple of wins in this day and age, and Mitch would get the call. He's an electrician, so this looks like this wasn't his go-to. He had his career and he was fighting on the side, but now he's picked up a lot of steam, and it seems now he knows, and this is becoming the number one goal right now is his fighting career. He shows some decent ground and pound and decent jiu-jitsu. There's room for improvement, of course, but hey, with that skill base and being a southpaw, surely he can give some guys problems. I do think he needs a little improvement, but with a victory or two, yeah, hey, he's right there. So check him out, Mitch Martin. Next on the list, going back to Russia, Kazan Israpilov, 23 years old, 5'8", 135, 7 wins, no losses, 6 submissions. Fight Club Berkut, again, that club is full of nasty, tough fighters. Key wins, for the most part, he's fought lower level competition. He did have a nice victory over 4-1 Fedor Demyagunov. Videos, I found 4 or 5 videos of dominant victories. He had one tough fight when he put back and forth, so he showed he has a chin and he showed the ability to take punishment and still be able to finish the fight. So, again, another interesting Russian prospect. He's very athletic, very versatile submission skills, and obviously the ground game, submission game, that's his bread and butter. He can finish guys off his back. He can finish on a top position. He's very offensive and technical with his grappling, always looking to break holes. So he would have to certainly improve his stand-up game a bit. But hey, the base is there. The talent's there. He's got the youth. And being in Russia, man, you get exposed to some very tough tough individuals and some tough training partners. So I'm sure at 7-0 at that age, this guy can certainly make the next level. And 3 or 4 wins from now, you can see him on a big screen. Moving on back to Brazil, another unknown fighter we're going to talk about. Rafael Macapa Ramos, 23 years old, 5'6", 135, fighting out of Brazil. Novo Uneo, 8-0, 2 TKO victories, 3 submissions. Key wins, 6-2 Matias Malta, 10-6 Luis Matos, and 5-2 Danner Santos. A couple of nice videos, I'll put the links. I believe at one point he won the Shudo Flyweight Championship and appears now to be fighting at 135. He's starting to develop a nice local base in Brazil with, local fans starting to get to know this guy's name. But again, for the most part, he finishes fights. I don't have a lot of information on him, but he appears to have some really good jiu-jitsu, decent striking. I'm not going to talk a ton about him, but I want to include him. I'd like to get him that little bit of exposure. Rafael Ramos, check him out. And finally, it appears we're down to our last fighter. And this was the last guy I included in the video because he had a tough fight last night and I was waiting to see if he was going to win. Herberth Souza, 25 years old, again out of Brazil, 5'6", 135, 15 wins, 1 loss, 2 TKO victories, 10 submissions, Constrictor Team Association, good size camp. He had a huge win last night under a massive prospect who was 9-0 to win the CFFC Bantamweight belt. And that was Alexander Chekhov. Chekhov was a big prospect, folks, and with the win, he probably would have moved to the UFC. Souza dominated that fight, got a unanimous decision last night, and that was again at CFFC 81 to win the Bantamweight belt. He's also beat BJJ black belt Ricardo Costos 15-6, 13-5 Gleiso Alves, and 11-6 Hildo Nascimento. 10 first-round victories. He's a BJJ black belt, I believe. I got 5 or 6 videos of him. You'll see in the section below, and he shows high-level jiu-jitsu. Looks like he's a little tentative on the feet, a little slow on the feet, but it looks like he does close the distance pretty decently, get close to you, and then he gets that takedown, and then he just goes to work on the ground. Uses the ground and pound to break you up for that submission. Real tricky stuff. So it'd be a guy, it'd be nice to see him get a little bit more aggressive on the feet, more technical on the feet, but he'd be dangerous because even a wrestler takes him down, the wrestler's in a bad spot to get submitted. He's 25 years old, so he's pretty much coming into his own. At 15-1 in that victory last night, I wouldn't be surprised if his next fight's in a bigger promotion. He may still need a win or two, but beating Chekhov was a huge victory, and I wouldn't be surprised. So that wraps it up, folks. That's 20 fighters in the bantamweight division. We kind of sped through things today. We didn't want to make the video too long. But again, I got to thank everybody for watching. And every time this video gets a view, it helps the fighter. So I'm going to ask, please, if you like the videos, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. We're looking to get back into YouTube, the MMA community. And we'd like to make this a yearly thing to do all the divisions. Hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook in the links below. And I'll also, again, put some social media links to some of these fighters. Anytime you like or share this video or go to the fighters' social media accounts, it helps those guys too. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 3, which will probably be up in a few weeks. So right now we've completed the lightweight division. We completed the bantamweight division. We still have the rest of the 6 of the 8 major divisions go for the men, and then we're going to do one video for women too, for women prospects. So stay tuned. I believe we're going to try to do the featherweight video next. Thanks for watching, folks. See you again soon.